talking, running his mouth, and all of that stuff. And to be honest with you, therein lies the problem, because loose lips sink ships. And if there's anything that you know from watching all of the stuff that's going on right now, you know that they're watching, prying eyes, listening ears, all of the above. I'm going to show you a CNN video that you've probably already seen, but I'm going to give my commentary on it. And the video is pretty telling, because it shows that there is somebody out there that's trying to stop this cat from running his mouth and saying the wrong thing. Honestly, you guys already know that I believe that both he and Fani Willis are their own worst enemies as it relates to media. And to me, it's sort of weird, because when I think about Fani, she has DeSantis. Now, DeSantis is her media cat, right? He came from Washington. This guy is old Washington. He's been around DC for ages. And the problem that I have is that he may not be this media mogul guy, or as far as, running media, he may not be what we think he is for her, because he's not stopping her. She was just at a church, and guess who was sitting in the pews like a little church boy, holding on her every word? None other than Nathan Wade. So her friend just keeps talking, and I think she might want him to shut up. I'm going to show you a video, but before I show you the video, I want to give you some words that were said by people, especially former mayor of Atlanta, Shirley Franklin, who thinks that he needs to just go away and be quiet. Here is an article that came from AJC, which is the paper there in the metro Atlanta area. And if you see this, which I know you do, make sure that you got it. Yeah, make sure you have the whole screen there. Nathan Wade, high profile. It says Nathan Wade's high profile draws scrutiny because he won't shut up. He won't. Now, this story is by Shannon McCaffrey and Bill Rankin. Quote, he has popped up on 3 national news outlets, celebrated publicly at Fani Willis's primary night victory party, and watched from a pew as the district attorney delivered a speech to Black church leaders. Now it says here, lately, Nathan Wade has been hard to miss. You couldn't miss him. Wade's romance with Willis nearly upended the Fulton County's election interference case against former President Donald Trump, and still could if an appeals court sides with the defense. After he resigned, some thought the former special prosecutor, would sort of keep a low profile. Instead, Wade has grabbed the spotlight with a blitz of national interviews, even as the Georgia Court of Appeals is scrutinizing whether his relationship with the DA, Fani Willis, could disqualify her from the case. Now, let me highlight this, because she seems to feel as if she's been over-sexualized in the media. And according to one of the things that I saw her saying on CNN, she was basically, and I looked at the CNN coverage, because that's where you can hear their liberal tears. She was basically saying that, hey, even Giuliani made a comment about my Fanny, calling me Fanny. My name is Fani, not Fanny. But they seem to take some pleasure and some pride, she states, and I'm paraphrasing here, by referring to a woman's bottom when they call my name. Now, I did see the clip, and I do believe that it was quite rude. But it's par for the course when you are a public figure. I mean, remember Giuliani, he's not beyond reproach. He's not above reproach. He had all of that dye. What is that stuff? The hair club for men color. What was that color? He had all of that black stuff running down the side of his face after they tried to tint his hair. So, we talked about him as well. Now it goes on to say that it isn't sitting well with some of Willis's allies. Here is what the former mayor of Atlanta, Shirley Franklin, said. She says, quote, and this is very impactful, even though it's one concise sentence. She says, I think it's an unnecessary distraction and disrespectful to both the process and to the DA for Wade to be giving interviews at this time. Bingo, bango, absolutely. So it sort of makes you wonder, what is his goal? Why is he doing it? What is the purpose of him making the comments that he's making? If you guys are not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. I don't bite, especially on Wednesdays. I'm not going to be too, promising about Thursdays or Tuesdays, but surely today being a Wednesday, you are absolutely safe to click the button and become a subscriber over there on the Lockhart Perspective or Headlines with a Voice that are joining us right now. I'm going to make this bigger because I think you need to see more of it. Let me come back on this side and check to make sure you guys, oh yeah, that's beautiful. Are you kidding me? That's great. You can't get any better than this right here. This is great. So what she said was absolutely true. Now, the Georgia State University Law School professor Anthony Michael Kress speculated that Wade might be seeking a television contract, saying, quote, and how can that be a positive thing for the Fulton County DA's office? He goes on to say that I think it would be a constant worry that some internal deliberations might get slipped on national television, he said, posted on X. Now, contacted by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Andrew Evans, a lawyer for Wade, said that he had no comment. However, on that program that we're talking about, he got asked a couple of questions. One of them was, is everything okay? I'm gonna get to that piece in a minute. Now, when the news of Wade's and Willis's relationship broke earlier this year, it sidelined the Fulton County election interference case against Donald Trump and 14 of his remaining co-defendants for 2 months. Willis had paid Wade more than $700,000 for his work, and defense attorneys argued that created a conflict of interest that should disqualify the DA and her entire office. Now, we all watched as Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee ruled in March that Willis could stay, but only if she got rid of Wade. So one or the other had to go, and only hours after that, Wade resigned. Now, just days after, Wade set out to break his silence with an interview on NBC's Meet the Press. NBC was already promoting the exclusive interview when Wade abruptly canceled, citing family emergencies. But that didn't stop him in early May when he sat down for an interview with ABC News, where he said workplace romances are, get this and remember this, they're as American as apple pie. We do it all the time, is what the brother was trying to tell you. Don't you know, Fani ain't the only one that I done the Fani thing with. It ain't just Fani, it's others. You just check my profile. I'm that dude. Anyway, he was soon on MSNBC discussing, among other things, the threats that he received while working on the Trump case. So I wonder if he's getting any now, telling him to just shut up. Be quiet. We can still hear you. You're breathing? Dude. Shh. His appearance last week on CNN went viral, and that's the one that we're going to look at right now to refresh everybody's memory. After a bizarre moment when his media consultant halted the interview and pulled Wade aside, presumably to discuss his answers to the questions about a timeline of his relationship. Now that's where we are going right this second, because you can't talk about this any further without actually seeing it. So let's get on with that. Let's get on with it. There you go. Hopefully it'll queue up perfectly, and it did. And I'm going to give it the full screen. I'll pull this back some.
What is your current relationship with the district attorney?
Just as outlined earlier, we are great friends. We speak regularly. The conversation has changed, though. Whereas before, our conversations were about this case. I'm sure you could imagine and appreciate the amount of time that it takes that you have to pour into a case a case of this magnitude, trying to prosecute those defendants. But our conversations have shifted to how are you handling the threats that are coming your way? Are you being safe? And the democracy, the case will live on, kind of thing.
Just to clarify, when did the romantic relationship between the two of you start?
Yeah, so we get into. There's been this effort to say that, okay, these exact dates are at issue, and these exact dates are. I'm getting signaled here.
Because I'm asking if I'm 5 by 5.
Keep rolling.
Keep rolling, don't stop now.
Everything okay?
Yeah.
Just to revisit the question, it was to clarify when the romantic relationship started and when it ended.
Sure. So, I believe that the public has, through the testimony and other interviews, the public has a clear snapshot that this is clearly just a distraction. It is not a relevant issue in this case. And I think that we should be focusing on more of the facts and the indictment in the case.
Well, I ask because obviously it's still a pending matter. It's going to be before the Court of Appeals. And you talked about how proud you were of all the work that you did in this office. And I think the question that people have when they hear from the Court of Appeals, this isn't happening until next spring, is did the relationship jeopardize that work that you did in this investigation?
And therein lies the issue, why we wouldn't touch upon the work of the Court of Appeals or some higher court, because it's a pending issue before them. I think that we should allow them, take a step back and allow them to take the evidence that they have.
So he's saying that he thinks that it's imperative for them to take a step back and let the appellate court, the appeals process go through and just let them handle it. But here's the problem, dude. You are publicly speaking. Now, I cannot control the volume here. I'm up as loud as I can on this broadcast. It's coming through Twitter. But the issue is that he's sitting there and he's trying to answer these questions. And I don't know why he did not think that somebody was going to ask him about the exact date the relationship started. Good on her. As far as a reporter is concerned, good on her for attempting it. But he's not going to answer. So let's finish.
And do their work, make the decision.
Right. But you did testify to this, and you were asked on the stand about when it started and when it ended. It just wasn't completely clear, because before it said before the indictment, which was August 15th here in Atlanta. And then later the answer was at the end of that year. And so I think that was the clarity that people were seeking of when it started and when it ended.
Sure. And there again, there's a question before the court. And that is the crux of the question. I don't choose to say or do anything that would jeopardize the case or the court's ruling. I prefer to allow them to make their decision based upon what they have, and accept it.
Do you believe, as you reflect on this, that your relationship with the district attorney was a mistake?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What I believe is this whole conversation is a distraction. That's all. It's a tool to stop the train, to slow down the inevitable, which is the trial of the defendants named in the election interference case.
Do you believe the trial ultimately happens?
Absolutely. Absolutely it happens.
Mr. Wade, thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so there you see it. As best that you could hear it, because obviously we don't have any control. You and I don't have any control. But the thing about it is that this guy is literally a train wreck, and he's absolutely a thorn in the side of anybody who would attempt to do their job. I don't know why she won't shut him up. I know that she possibly wants him to shut up, but let's just flip the script for a second. Let's just say she doesn't actually have any control over this dude and that he's stalking her now. You remember, he comes from that era of the love songs when all of our love songs was stalking in a certain type of way, right? Even Sting had that song. Everywhere you go, I'll be watching you. Every breath you take, every move you make, baby, I'm going to be watching you. So I'm trying to figure out if this cat is popping up everywhere by invitation, and if he's making these media appearances by request from her, or if he's even stopped to ask her, what does she think? Is it okay? Would you mind? To me, I would feel really, really ticked if a dude that I was dealing with and got into all this trouble with was still running around here flapping his liver lips. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here in the hot seat. Look, the only people that stand to lose in this situation is her. Look at it that way. He, of course, can just skate and do whatever it is that he wants to do and just keep on going. He doesn't have to worry about a thing, not one thing. He can just go on ahead and become that media guy and, become one of these cats that talk on the, what do they call the commentators that actually come on those shows, the analysts or whatever. He could definitely be that person. It doesn't necessarily have to be that he just sits back in the cut. Hey, he made 700 grand and okay, I'm not sure if the house sold or not, but I know they put it up for like little or nothing. It was like $700,000 in Atlanta. And they have big houses that they considered his home a mansion there in Atlanta, a suburb of Atlanta. I don't understand why it only went for 700, unless, of course, they were trying to lowball the number so that they could divide the assets between he and his wife. Either way, this dude is doing a lot better than she is right now. I'm going to rummage around and see what we can find, because I wasn't planning on letting you see her whine and cry, but I think it's important now that I've mentioned it, where she said that she was actually being over-sexualized. I'm being over-sexualized is what she says. And let's see, let's look at my history. I think I have it here, where she even mentioned the fact that, in her opinion, it was not cool for Giuliani to make the statements that he made. Now, what's going to happen is this video will also cover what we just saw, right? And I don't own this. I'm just using this piece for commentary. That's it. Commentary and, entertainment. That's what we're doing. We don't own any of this stuff coming from CNN. And again, the reason why I like to use CNN is because you can hear everything that they want you to know. You can hear about them just crying like a baby and needing everybody to feel for them. You don't need to feel for anybody. Let's just put it down here where the cows can get it. As my friend Dad says, here's the deal. This was never about a relationship between the two of them. Once that became an established point, and once they established the fact that it did take place prior to the case starting with Trump, we needed to look at the multi-prongs of this case. And the other prongs are this. She lied under oath. She lied on documentation. She lied when it came to if he was or was not reimbursed. Every single thing that happened beyond the point of the relationship became an issue. And that's what this is really about. Are you an ethical district attorney, or are you a not so ethical? Now, I'm not sure if anybody has been following, but maybe we need to pull that up. The courts that are there in Georgia, there's a group of, people that are looking at the ethics committee that are looking at her. And they had a very damning interview that was done with the gal that used to work for her. And she told the truth as she knew it. And it doesn't look good. Now, here is what I know. Having DeSantis as one of the individuals that work for her, and by her, I mean Fani, as her media guy, we already know his history, where he came from, who he is. And if you don't, then let me just say this. He is a gentleman who has worked in Washington, D.C. for a very long time. He has old DC money, old DC blood running through his veins. And for whatever reason, he found the tenderness in his heart to leave the upper echelons of Washington, to leave Biden, to leave Obama, to leave the Clintons, and come on down here to the South, baby, and go right on over there to Fulton County and work with Fani, which means she has a handler. And I submit that it's him, allegedly. Let's get into this.
The prosecutor leading the case against Donald Trump in Georgia is lashing out at her critics today for, quote, anti-Christian attacks. CNN's Brian Todd has more on the fiery speech Fani Willis just gave at an Atlanta area church.
She always runs to the church.
A defiant Fulton.
You guys know that I have to break in while we're watching these because that's the only way that it is actually commentary. But she always runs to the Black church. And I personally feel like every time I turn around, when people start running to the Black church, why aren't the Black people more informed? Is it because they just, are so busy that they just want to cut to the chase and get the cliff notes and not necessarily the essence of what it is they're watching? Is it because they refuse to read? Is it because they refuse to do any research? Why does this always work? Why is it all? Let me be quiet because I can already feel I'm about to start cooking and I want y'all to hear this. Let me stop because I just want that. Please put it down in the comments why you think they always run to the Black churches and it works every time. Maybe that's my answer.
County District Attorney delivers a message to her detractors.
Black women are sick and tired of being sick and tired.
During an appearance today at an African Methodist Episcopal church outside Atlanta, Fani Willis talked about what she's gone through since former President Donald Trump tried to get her removed from prosecuting his election subversion case in Georgia, and since Nathan Wade resigned as a prosecutor in the case because of their previous relationship.
What can I say? I lived the experience of a Black woman who is attacked and over-sexualized. See, I'm so tired of hearing these idiots call my name as Fanny in a way to attempt to humiliate me. Because like silly schoolboys, the name reminds them of a woman's rear, of her behind.
Willis did not mention anyone by name in her speech, but alluded to the moment Trump's former attorney, Rudy Giuliani, made an offensive remark about her at a Michigan church event last week.
I've got two prosecutors, Fanny the hoe.
Willis responded to that this morning.
Very anti-Christian behavior celebrated. In fact, they cheer, celebrated, and laugh loudly.
This came just hours after CNN.
All right, so I'm going to step in here and I'm just going to be very candid and very honest. Yeah, that was rude. Period. I don't care who you are. Now, look here. Everybody can get it. It's not just one side that can get it. Everybody can get it today. That was cold. That was wrong. However, I just got through cracking a joke about homeboy's hair dye running down the top of his face because it was. If you guys don't remember, I know Sandy remembers because his hair was running down the side of his face like nobody's business. But let's get into this, and I'm going to deal with the over-sexualization piece in a minute.
And Caitlin Collins interviewed Nathan Wade. A tense moment came with this question.
When did the romantic relationship between the two of you start?
There's been this effort to say that, okay, these exact dates are at issue, and these exact dates are. I'm getting signaled here.
A consultant to Wade interrupted the interview. They moved aside and spoke for a few moments. Then Collins resumed.
Everything okay?
Yeah.
Just to revisit the question, it was to clarify when the romantic relationship started and when it ended.
Sure. So, I believe that the public has, through the testimony and other interviews, the public has a clear snapshot that this is clearly just a distraction. It is not a relevant issue in this case.
As Willis continues to fight Trump's appeal to get her kicked off the case, analyst Norm Eisen believes she's...
How How is it not relevant in the case when it is the basis of why the whole thing blew up in your face like a powder keg, homeboy? Why? Why is it not relevant? Wouldn't it be relevant if everything were reversed? Sure it would. So it's very relevant. Moreover, it's relevant because you're running around here while the wound is still wide open, pouring more salt in it and giving us more content. But I love it. Come on with it.
He's got a good shot at staying on.
Her relationship with her former deputy, Nathan Wade, did not prejudice Donald Trump in any way. He was not a witness in the case. There's no allegation that they shifted the evidence in any way.
3 times, Caitlin Collins asked Nathan Wade if he thought his personal involvement with Fani Willis played any role in the delay of the Georgia trial, likely until after the 2024 election. 3 times, Wade said he did not think the relationship played any role in that. Like Willis, Wade said there have been threats against his life, which he described as being constant. Wolf?
Brian Todd reporting. Brian, thank you very much. Let's discuss this and more with CNN legal analyst Elliot Williams and former federal prosecutor Elise Adamson. Elise.
Now, what do you guys think? Before we even get into it, let's cast lots, shall we? Let's cast them. What do you think the woman is going to say? And what do you think the man is going to say? Quickly, hurry up. La, 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 da, 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 bring. Ding, 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 ding. Yes, it is. And that's the reason why we listening to it, Iowa Freethinker. We listening to it because this is where you see the overwhelming flowing tears of the liberals. Here we go.
Elise, what are your thoughts on what we just heard from the district attorney, Fani Willis?
Yeah, Wolf, I think Fani Willis is not wrong in what she said about this ugly trope of the over-sexualization of Black women. This over-focus on a Black woman's body in an effort to degrade Black women is very, very real. And I can tell you from my own experience as being a woman of color, that it happens, and we can validate DA Willis in that experience. And we have seen examples of these attacks against her. I believe the president even mispronounced her name as Fanny and made it very clear that he was referring to a rear end. And there have been many examples of attacks on DA Willis since she indicted this RICO case. And it is absolutely despicable, and she has every right to be upset. Now, that being said, I think it is also important to note that we should not be conflating all of those horrendous attacks with the inquiry into her appointment of Nathan Wade. I think if any defense attorney had been given the evidence that Ashley Merchant was, that there had been a relationship between Nathan Wade and Fani Willis, they would have been duty bound to make hay out of it, just like they did. And I think Judge McAfee was also right to hold a hearing, an evidentiary hearing, to develop those facts and make sure there was no conflict of interest or financial benefit. And I understand that there were some tawdry elements about her love life that came out during that hearing, but I don't think that was the effort to discredit her through over-sexualization. I think that was an inquiry that, quite frankly, she opened the door to, she invited to, by having a relationship with Nathan Wade. So I think both can be true. I think Fani Willis can be upset, and I also think that the inquiry was valid.
Ah, this young lady speaks with some balance. Okay. What of the brother? Let's see.
Elliot, you heard Nathan Wade sidestep that question from Caitlin Collins about the timeline of that romantic relationship. How much does all of this hurt the optics around the Georgia case?
I would say all of it hurts the optics, Wolf, because what we're seeing here is something we're really not used to seeing, which isn't common, which is prosecutors speaking publicly. This is why prosecutors and, quite frankly, people who are involved in litigation typically don't speak. Every single word he says can get him, can gum up the case further and jeopardize the chances of convicting the defendants that he was trying to investigate and go after. So that timeline question is proof positive of sort of the pitfalls here for prosecutors' staff talking. He could end up contradicting himself, making a statement that could undermine public faith in their work, but more to the point, could just taint the jury pool. So there's all kinds of reasons. This is why it's so rare. You very rarely see prosecutors or senior staff speaking publicly in the media.
Elise, do you see this having any bearing on Trump's continuing appeal to get Fani Willis kicked off the case?
Yeah, I don't think these two recent incidents is going to have any bearing on the appeal. Quite frankly, we don't know what the appellate court is going to do, but there's a high burden here. This is based on factual findings. The trial court, Judge McAfee, did a very good job letting the defense make their case. The defense ultimately failed to do so. And an appellate court does not like to disturb those factual findings. They can review to see if Judge McAfee was wrong on the law, but not really on the facts. So I think the DA's office has a very good chance of prevailing here in the sense that she will not be disqualified. And I don't think Nathan Wade's recent appearance nor Fani Willis's public comment at the church will have any impact on the court's ruling.
Elise Adams and Elliot Williams, to both of you, thank you very much.
All right, you guys heard that. Now, what we're going to take a quick look at is the full hearing, not the full hearing. We're gonna nitpick it, and we're gonna pull a little bit out here and there. But I want you guys to see. I want you guys to see everything that this lady is up against and everything that is being used against her, which came out of her own mouth, which is by her actions and all of that. Because if for whatever reason this thing skates next month, I'll know something. If y'all from Mississippi, y'all know what I mean. I'm gonna know something. I'm gonna know something. So here is a hearing. We're gonna play pieces of it. I've watched it live. And so what I want to do is I want to let you guys see it, because these are the people who are looking at Fani, and they are the individuals that are dealing with her as it relates to this case and everything that she has done. Now, let me say this, because I do want to deal with the particulars that we just listened to. Now, when she stated that she was being over-sexualized, I don't believe she was being sexualized at all. In my opinion, I believe that people were making jokes, and it was just, a convenient joke. I think when I think of sexualized, I don't know, maybe I'm taking it the wrong way. I'm thinking of in person, pinching somebody. I guess that would be considered just blatant harassment. But I don't see the balance between what she said in that church and the reality of what was really going on, other than the fact that she is a public figure and that people do make fun of public figures. I mean, look at what I call Mr. Trump. Everybody who knows me knows that I call him Mr. Naranga because of the orange hair, even though his hair ain't orange no more. And he looked like he got a comb over it. But that's what I say about him. And he's also huge, but his son is bigger in an Anunnaki type of way, right? His son is taller, bigger than he is, and I don't know, like a Nephilim kind of way. But that's for another show. Dealing specifically with this, we're going to take a look at it. I hear what Fani is saying. I don't think it was cool for what Giuliani said, but like I said, I've been guilty of picking on him and picking on everybody else because it's what I do. With that in mind, let's go ahead and listen to this young lady who was the woman that I played for you guys about 4 months ago when she mentioned the fact that she had gone to Fani. She had told Fani Willis that this man is going to be a problem for you because I helped to write this grant and he is using the funds in an incorrect way. We're going to look at this. We're going to watch it. And I want you guys down below there in the comments to let me know what you think as we go along. Again, we are using this completely for editorial, for jokes. We're doing it all, but it doesn't belong to us. It doesn't belong to anybody. It doesn't belong to me here at the Lockhart Perspective or Headlines with a Voice. I am using it specifically under the Copyright Act's provisions, which give me the right to do this. It is fair use.
We have testimony today from Miss Amanda Timpson. She was a former director of the Juvenile Diversion Program with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. She has voluntarily come forward during the legislative session and presented information to me about the running of the DA's office and some misappropriation of federal grant funds. I subsequently asked her to give me some documentation to give me some proof of that. Come on in, Senator Estevez, sit wherever you would like to. And Senator Butler, you may sit at any place you want to. These are not assigned seats. If you have another place you'd prefer to sit, that's fine. Okay. So I've looked at some of the materials. She has a notebook full of information here today, and I have not copied that. We have not put that into the evidence of the committee unless we'll find out what you have that is not privileged or confidential and that is relevant as we proceed. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to swear you in. You have your counsel with you, Mr. Mario Williams, is that right? And you may have things you would like to add as well, and if so, I can swear you in at this time as well, okay? And we'll do that. If you'll raise your right hands, please. Do you swear the testimony you will give before this committee today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
I do. All right. Madam Court Reporter, we're going to start with Miss Amanda Timpson, and Mario Williams is her counsel that's with her. Ms. Timpson, would you please just introduce yourself to the jury? You don't have to give us your specific residence address, but tell us where you live and who you're working for at the present time.
Sure. My name is Amanda Timpson. I am a resident of Fulton County, and currently I work for the Momentum Advisory Collective, a national nonprofit working with justice-involved youth.
Okay. Did you previously work for the Fulton County District Attorney's Office?
I did.
And what years did you work with the DA's office?
I worked with the DA's office from 2018 to 2022.
Okay. Would you give us just a little bit of background on your educational history, your educational background?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in sociology from Georgia State. I have a master's degree in human behavior from Capella University, a postmaster's specialist in community intervention, and several other certifications in ongoing education.
Okay. What was your employment history just generally before you became employed by the Fulton County District Attorney's Office?
This young lady is well decorated, a very intelligent woman that was actually in that office prior to DA Fani Willis taking the role. So she has been there. She's very well versed on the laws that she was supposed to follow in the capacity that she worked for the district attorney at that time. So I want you guys to listen very closely because she just gave off all of the stuff that she's done, but I've done a little more research on her and there's a lot more that she didn't say that she's done. Very humble young lady, and to me, quite believable. Let me know what you think.
So I've worked in juvenile diversion and with gang prevention for about 15 years. And it started in Los Angeles, in Compton, and I worked and volunteered in spaces and nonprofits from youth diversion to gang prevention to mental health services. When I relocated here to Atlanta, I taught at both APS and DeKalb County School District for about 4 years combined. And then in 2018, I came on at the District Attorney's Office under Paul Howard as the Director of Gang Prevention and Intervention.
When did you move back?
Okay, now she came from Compton, California, which means that for all of those years that she's done this particular type of work, it would lead me to believe that she has a passion for doing this at-risk youth type work. And it does take a person who really does care about the community and the children in the community to do this job. So I appreciate the fact that she let us know that, because what's about to be told is going to make so much sense. It's like, well, why do we care what she's talking about? listen to what she's going to tell us.
Back to the Atlanta area or relocate here to the Atlanta area?
I've been here for about 9 years,
And
about 10 years.
when you worked for DeKalb County Schools and Atlanta Public Schools, what was your role there? Were you a teacher or a counselor, or give us a little idea?
I was a middle school social studies teacher.
Okay. And so what led you to apply for employment with the district attorney's office?
Prior to relocating here in Atlanta, my background was gang prevention. And so when I came here, I didn't really see too much of that. It's a passion. It's something that I got into due to experiences in my own life. And I just felt like I understood gang issues from a unique standpoint. And I wanted to be a part of the solution.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your position there. I don't know that I could repeat what you just said with the, did you say you're the director of gang prevention
and intervention? Okay. Yes, sir.
And that was under District Attorney Paul Howard?
Correct.
Was that a position that was funded by a grant or something he created, or it would have been an opening? Tell us how that became a possibility.
Yes, sir. Sorry. So he created the Office of the Gang Coordinator, and under that office was the Unit for Gang Prevention and Intervention. He saw an uptick in criminal street gang activity, specifically in youth, and wanted to work to divert some general funds and apply for grant funds to eradicate gang activity in Atlanta.
Were you the first director of gang prevention and intervention?
I was.
Okay, so that was a newly created position that you applied for?
Yes.
Okay. And Paul Howard was the DA here for what, 18 or 20 years, I guess, before Ms. Willis?
Correct.
Is that who you reported to, or did you have another supervisor?
He was my direct supervisor.
Tell me what you did in that role.
In that role, I created diversionary programs. I worked with Atlanta Public Schools to educate their school resource officers on gang trends that we were seeing in our office. I also was tasked with creating a steering committee of Fulton County residents and leaders to try to kind of steer the direction of the gang prevention. I was also tasked with creating opportunities for gang prevention, and one of those opportunities was we were gifted a building at 475 Fairburn Road, and we were going to rehab that building and turn it into the Gang Prevention Center for youth empowerment. And so I managed all functions of that center, including creating programming and working with partners in the community, as well as the rehabilitation. So working with engineers, contractors, et cetera.
So you helped develop that center, get it retrofitted or refurbished or whatever for those purposes.
Yes, sir.
So that was a gift. Some citizen donated that for that purpose, or?
It was actually donated by the county. I'm not sure exactly that process. It happened prior to me coming on board, I believe in 2017. The county gifted it to the DA's office, and the DA's office sought to create a gang prevention center.
Okay.
So now an actual gang prevention center, and you guys remember I lived in Atlanta, I lived in Georgia for 18 years. A gang prevention center in that community is definitely something that was well needed, well deserved, and well needed, specifically because it's going to be used as a net to catch the children who would otherwise, hang out at an ATM at night for not having money and bop somebody upside the head. It would literally prevent or help to stave off crime in that community. And it is rampant, and it has increased. As a matter of fact, since this whole situation was going on over the past several months, Fani Willis's office has not been able, and they have just have not done their gig at all. They've only done a portion. Everything that's coming through there now is all sensationalized. However, what this gal was doing, dealing with the contractors, working directly for the then deputy. He wasn't the deputy. He was actually the district attorney. She was working directly for him. What this did was it prevented the children in that community from being served based on the funds that were given to that county for the very need. Now, this is important because in a minute, you're going to hear them discuss how the funds were divvied out. Let's listen.
So that may have been one of the motivating factors for creating your position once you had a facility there for youth gang prevention and intervention or whatnot at that point.
Absolutely.
Okay. So tell me about the funding. You mentioned that there were some general funds from Fulton County, and then there were federal grants that helped fund your position in this program.
So my position was funded fully by the DA's office. And there were general funds allocated to rehab the building. The grant funds were allocated specifically to fund programming out of this building. So when we applied for the grant, we applied for it with the thought in mind that we already had this building and that we already had funds to rehab this building. So we got it contingent upon the building being there.
And give me an idea of the amount of the grants or where they come from. Federal government, some department,
Yes, there was one specific grant that was specific to the building, and that was the the 2020 OJJDP Gang Prevention Grant. And so that was given to us in October of 2020, and the amount was $488,564, I believe.
All right, so tell me what that stands for. OJJDP.
The Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention.
So was that something that you had a part in applying for that grant?
Yes, I helped co-write the grant. Myself, my colleague, and our grant writer all contributed to co-writing that grant in early 2020, I believe.
So you submit that to the Office of Juvenile Justice at the federal level.
Yes, sir.
I guess other DA offices around the country also can apply for these type of grants.
Yes, they're very competitive.
All right. And you won. You got it was granted to you.
Yes, sir.
All right. And that amount was $488,564.
Yes.
What were the funds to be used for? Do you have to specify that when you apply for a grant, how much money you need and what you're going to spend it on?
Yes. And I think one of the reasons that we were awarded the grant was because our grant was so specific. So the grant consisted of us narrating basically the gang issue in Fulton County. So we broke it down by zip codes, by active gangs in those specific zip codes, by correlating schools that those gangs fed into, and then the age range was 12 to 17. So ultimately, the grant funds were supposed to be allocated for the programming that fit that age range, that population. And so the programming would consist of sub-awardees, which are other organizations that are doing the work in the community. We don't necessarily do all of the work. A lot of times we manage the work. But all of that was supposed to be done out of the gang center, if that makes sense.
That does. So you as the coordinator would have other private organizations that are charitable organizations wanting to intervene with troubled youth to prevent gang violence.
Yes, and in this situation, it was all nonprofits and excluding Fulton County Schools and Atlanta Public Schools.
Were they engaged or involved as well?
Yes.
But you didn't have to pay them for their services.
We did.
Some of these nonprofits you would provide funding to funneled through this grant.
Correct.
Okay. What are the rules
Let's speed it up, you guys, because I want to
You
give
sound
you guys a
pretty
prize.
savvy about that. Are there
21.
standing Atlanta Fulton DA office program?
Yes, sir.
Was in place long before Fani Willis was elected.
There you
Yes,
go.
ma'am. Sir.
So she inherited it, so to speak.
Yes.
And did she take over the program after that, or did she designate a specific individual in the DA's office to monitor or manage that?
Yes. Michael Cuffey, he was at the time, he was the chief programs officer.
Okay.
And he oversaw all programs. So he was my direct supervisor at the time. And he was the direct supervisor over myself and the junior DA program as well.
All right, so I want you guys to look at it. Look at the logistics. She was the person who was over it. She and two other people there in the office spearheaded the writing of the grant. And with all specificity, she and the two others there in the office wrote the grant in such a way that they would earn the funds because they were very specific. Now, I'm not sure how many people here in the chat have worked with grant writing, but if you have, you know that whatever you say, or let me put it this way, when these grants become available from the United States government, they are very specific. They tell you what you can, can't do, how it can be used, cannot be used. And based on what she just said, they were very specific, almost to the penny, as to what the funds were going to be used for. Moreover, she was the individual under the previous district attorney to actually oversee that office. Now enters Mr. Cuffey. Mr. Cuffey worked and works right now for Fani Willis. However, Mr. Cuffey does not come without his own set of baggage from previous situations. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but I'm going to set that up for you so that when I bring it, you'll know exactly what we're talking about when I mention him and show you the situation that he was involved in. And it wasn't good there in Fulton County.
Was Mr. Cuffey with the DA's office during Paul Howard's tenure?
No.
Okay, so he was a new employee, came
Yes,
in
sir.
with Miss Willis.
Yes.
Okay. Who did you report to as the Director of Gang Prevention and Intervention?
I reported directly to Mr. Howard.
Okay. Did your role change after he was defeated by Miss Willis?
Yes. So the week after she was elected, she sent an email to the DA's office, all current employees of the DA's office, along with her new organizational chart, and basically told us that a lot of changes were coming, and one of those changes would be employees. And so while we were all guaranteed an opportunity to apply and interview, she would guarantee us an interview. We weren't guaranteed a job. And so once upon reviewing the organizational chart, I realized the gang prevention unit had been abolished. So my job was not there for me, even if I wanted it. And so I found 3 other positions and applied for those positions. And on November 20th of 2020, I interviewed in front of a 9-member panel led by Ms. Willis and Nathan Wade and Jeff DeSantis and 6 other individuals. And ultimately, on December 9th of 2021, I received my invitation to the administration along with a congratulations letter.
On January 9th of 21?
December 9th, I'm sorry.
December 9th.
Of 2020.
2020, okay.
Yes.
So she didn't officially take office until, I would assume, January, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So do you notice who was in the room? It was DeSantis and it was also Nathan Wade, which tells me that he's still in some way involved. He may not be involved with the actual case, but he is still involved in some way, shape, or form with this office. Could he be? Could he be doing phantom work? Could he have another LLC, perhaps, that is maybe on paper, but not necessarily with his face? Could he be doing something remote? For whatever reason, because he keeps popping up, he feels that he's entitled to pop up. Now, what this lady has just talked about is really important, because the DeSantis cat that I just mentioned and Nathan Wade were a big part of deciding who was going to remain in that office and who was not.
But she went ahead and was having the transition, hiring new people. All right.
Yes.
So Mr. Wade was on this committee that interviewed you?
Yes.
Was he employed by the DA's office at that time, to your knowledge?
I don't know because I didn't know him. I just knew that he was I would see him around the office, but also I just knew that he was one of the main ones leading the interview. And so I just took notice between Miss Willis, Jeff DeSantis, and Nathan Wade because they were the main ones leading the interview.
And who is Jeff DeSantis?
I believe he is her media personnel, but I know he's an attorney, but I don't know his exact title in her office.
Had he previously been employed by the district attorney's office?
No, he had not.
So he was a new player in the game.
Yes.
Okay. So your interview must have gone well.
It did.
And you were awarded the job.
I was.
What was the new job? You said there were 2 or 3 different positions you looked at in the new administration.
Yes. So my new position was the director of juvenile diversion.
So still working with troubled youth.
Yes.
Was that just a renamed department as the reorganization, new organizational chart went, or was it very similar in duties or something totally different?
It was a little bit of both. Similar because I worked with the same population, different in that it wasn't specific to gang related or gang involvement, and also different because the focus of gang reduction kind of shifted, and it was a lot more just open, I would say, like as far as just any youth who were justice involved. So I would work a lot with juvenile court.
Okay, you guys, I'm going to
So
break
not
in a
just-
minute because I think it's important for me to let you hear this. Okay. When the question was raised, well, who is he? This is coming from the web. All right. There are several different documents that are talking about who he is. And I'm just going to read it. Quote, Biden's Fulton County fixer. Who is Jeff DeSantis? Democrat operative Jeff DeSantis was planted by the Biden administration in the office of the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, Fani Willis, in order to target former President Donald Trump. This is what they think. A report cited multiple sources saying, quote, if the Biden administration planted the operative, as the sources say, then it would present a strong argument that the administration interfered with the 2024 presidential election. This comes from Breitbart News. DeSantis is a significant figure who has been overlooked in the Fulton County scandal concerning Willis and her alleged lover, prosecutor Nathan Wade. Sources familiar with the county's DA office told the outlet. Who exactly is he? Excuse me. Fulton County's deputy district attorney has professional credentials far greater than the average county employee, the report said. Quote, DeSantis worked with Willis on Willis's 2020 campaign and the former executive director of the Democratic Party of Georgia with extensive knowledge of campaign finance law. He was also the deputy director of compliance for the DNC, according to his official biography. Quote, Jeff has also worked for candidates in 30 states, running a variety of offices, including President of the United States Senator, Governor, United States Senator, States Representative, Attorney General, District Attorney, and Mayor, as well as for National Political Party Committee. He has served as a campaign manager, media consultant, pollster, press spokesperson, research director, and policy advisor. It goes on to add, DeSantis is the one pulling the strings in Fulton County's case against Trump, as the source told Breitbart. It continues with, he was the one that walled her or Willis's office off. He was in every important meeting. He is the brainchild behind this. That is the connection to the White House. Sources told Breitbart News they were 100% certain that DeSantis was the inside man Team Biden planted in the Fulton County office. And here's another quote. Anyone that has common sense knows that the White House has been involved in this prosecution. This didn't just miraculously happen. Of course, she's, Willis, not going to prosecute the former president of the United States without the current administration's approval. So that's the piece that I wanted to read to you. I'm going to copy this now and put it down in the body. I'm not sure if you guys can get it, but here it is. All right, so let's see. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to capture it, but nonetheless, that's where I'm reading that from. With that said, don't know how that's going to affect the channel, but we'll see. I really don't care, okay? It's truth, and I'm not about to run from that. Let me let you guys continue to hear this. Here you go.
specific to juvenile gangs, any juvenile problems or issues.
Correct.
Okay. Now, same salary in the new position, or
Yes.
okay? Was there any unit that dealt specifically with youth gangs under this reorganization, or it kind of came under your umbrella as the director of juvenile diversion programs?
Yes, there was, so it came under my purview, so there was no more gang-specific unit other than the prosecution unit, the gang unit of attorneys I am program, so there was no programs for.
We are kind of learning as we go how massive the DA's office is. Do you know how many employees totally in the Fulton DA's office?
I don't.
You
Hundreds.
Do you know how many attorneys, assistant district attorneys?
If I even spoke on it, I wouldn't be accurate because I haven't been there in 2 years. However, I know there's hundreds.
All right.
At least
And it
150,
sounds like
I would think.
hundreds of support staff or other administrative personnel such as yourself as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is in this new positions when you began reporting to Michael Cuffey.
Yes.
All right. Did you continue to supervise the OJJDP grant
Yes.
in your new position?
Yes. I was actually written into the grant as the grant project director. So no matter what I did, if that grant was valid, I would be supervising the grant.
All right. But you weren't paid through the grant?
No.
All right. And did you continue running the junior DA program?
Yes, for a short time.
All right. All right. Well, as 2021 begins, you're in your new role that has the same duties and more, and you're now reporting to Michael Cuffey instead of Paul Howard.
Correct.
Did you notice any irregularities or problems with the administration of this OJJDP grant?
Yes. In early March of 2021, after a lot of the administrative work was done on the grant, we need to now get to work. And so Michael Cuffey, who is the new chief programs officer, invited myself and my colleague, who also co-wrote the grant, into a meeting just so he could understand the scope of the grant. In this meeting, this was the first time that he kind of mentioned that what he wanted to spend the grant on, and he articulated that he wanted to spend the grant on computers, travel, and swag. And at the time, we were saying swag because there was a lot of rebranding going on. And so like each unit now had their own sweaters and their own mugs and stuff. And there was a complete and total rehaul of the building and stuff. So this idea of having swag was like a big thing. So those are the three things.
Trinkets. These are pins and coffee cups and T-shirts and sweatshirts, things promoting the new district attorney.
Correct.
Okay.
And
I'm going to stop and say this because this is a big issue. You find that whenever, and I'm going to just put it out there, people don't like it. You know what? I'm not going to apologize because you know it. If you get upset with me, you know I'm not lying. A lot of times when we get involved in things like this, where we can show off who we are, especially these folks who graduated with belonging to sororities and fraternities, you see grown rump men running around with purple and gold sweatshirts, boasting the names of their fraternities. And the same with these grown old women running around with pink and green and red and white and blue and white, signifying their sororities and their fraternities. This is exactly a problem within our community, especially when we get access to funds. We are consumers, and this is not something I'm saying that's not a real deal. It's something we need to check, because this mindset is exactly what she's expressing. We're going to get quote unquote swag. Swag. What grown rump man says a term like swag? Let's listen.
So I quickly kind of interjected and let him know that those were not things that we could do with the grant. At that point, it seemed as if he hadn't read the grant narrative. And so I just wanted to educate him. I was a bit concerned, but at that point, it was the first time I had heard of it. I just tried to kind of set him straight and tell him like, oh, we can't do that. It's really specific. And it's specific to programming. We can't buy any equipment. And that was a huge thing because in the grant narrative, in the grant budget, it says specifically no equipment. And so his idea for wanting to get computers and even pay for travel, like those are completely out of the scope of the grant.
Okay. And you know that because you wrote the grant?
Correct.
And in the grant plan, you tell how the money is going to be spent?
Correct.
And in the budget, you identify how it's intended to be spent?
Correct.
Did any of those documents provide for spending money on swag?
No.
Did any of those documents provide for spending money on computers or other equipment?
No, sir.
Did any of those documents or budgets provide for money to be spent for travel?
No.
Okay, I'm going to stop in here for a second. The budget for this grant was specifically for the program itself. How many children they were going to be able to serve, how many individuals, you had to divide that out. How many people were they going to, if they had to employ anybody, it had to be for the program itself. They already have the building donated. Now, if you want to keep Man and Pookie them from bopping somebody upside the head at the grocery store or whatever, because they're hungry or they don't have no money or they're disparaged or whatever the situation is, it's going to take dollars to do that, not freaking swag. Because you see, swag is what Pookie and Man them be trying to get other than to eat when they bopping you upside the head at the ATM and at the grocery store. Let's continue.
And how about on the junior DA grant? I think we called that the JAG grant. Were you administer that in March of 2021?
Yes.
And did you notice or detect or hear about any intentions to improperly spend that money?
Not in March, but as time went on, yes.
So what happened when you straightened Michael Cuffey out and after he had told you his intentions of how he intended to spend the money, you told him that was illegal? What was his reaction?
Initially, he let me know that it was the employees in the DA's office call Ms. Willis Madam. So he let me know that it was Madam's vision. And I basically said, okay, I understand that, but that's not what the grant says. And as the director of the grant, I wanted to make sure that I was careful and clear what the grant said. And this grant was written prior to her coming in the office. I assumed at the time that maybe they just weren't aware, but I just wanted to make him aware that that is not what the grant says.
Okay. Did you hear further conversations about the misuse of the money, or did he follow your advice and not spend it on swag and travel and equipment?
So initially, that was just the initial time. I continued to be persistent and to let him and everybody else know that we could not spend the grant in that manner. And he persisted to say that that was what we were going to do with the grant. In weekly meetings, we had weekly program team meetings. He would say that, so it was multiple people that heard his intentions to spend this money that way. And I was just persistent in letting him know that that was not what we could do. And I noticed as I persisted to let him know that my treatment drastically started to change. Yes, specifically from Michael Cuffey in the form of being disinvited to meetings or being blatantly rude, or when I said, hey, we can't do that, just staring directly into my eyes and then just walking off. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't know, if this was an intimidation factor or what was going on, but I just knew I had to stand my ground because I was, fearful of the misuse of funds.
Okay. Well, so the story ends there, or did you continue your complaints?
No, I continued my complaints. Ultimately, in May of 2021, the just the overwhelming retaliation and pushback got so bad. I sent an email to Miss Willis and I told her that I had followed the chain of command to no avail and I really needed to speak with her. At this time, I believed that
I'm going to speed this part up.
she had no idea what was going on, and I wanted to make her aware of what I saw to be a potentially illegal and dangerous situation, and I didn't want there to be any scandal related to her administration.
You sent that directly to her?
I did.
Did she reply?
She did not.
Okay.
But I believe 2 or 3 days later, Mr. Cuffey approached me and said that he knew that I reached out to her and that no matter what I did, that she was just going to come back to him. And so at that point, I didn't really know who to go to or what to do, because when I attempted to make her aware of what I saw to be an illegal situation, it was told directly to the person that was doing what I saw to be illegal.
Mr. Cuffey?
Mr. Cuffey,
Okay.
Correct.
Did you complain to anybody else other than Mr. Cuffey in your email to Fani Willis?
Not in my initial email. Things started to progress as far as my retaliation. It was almost daily that it was something. If it wasn't something, it was, something else. Eventually, the junior DA program started to near. And he started saying that he was going to be buying Apple products with the junior DA funds.
Apple products like Apple iPhones or computers?
Computers.
Okay.
And I don't know why, but he just really wanted these Apple computers. So I let him know that we couldn't do that with the junior DA fund either. And so he took me off directing the junior DA program and put other people in my place. And then eventually when junior DA started in June of 2021, I noticed that there were youth in the program that were not Fulton County residents, weren't even residents of the state of Georgia. There were youth in the...
Listen to this. I did speed it up because we want to get to the other portion where her attorney begins to speak, who is also a very well-versed man. However, this piece ticked me off. Because like I said, having lived in Georgia and having understood, even living in Carson, California, which is Compton, California adjacent. It's a suburb of Los Angeles County that I grew up in, not Compton. I wasn't living in Compton. My family, my father's an engineer. We stayed in Carson. There's people who got dads that are engineers in Compton as well. But the negative connotation to Compton is what I'm referencing. There are children who really do need help in those areas. This situation really burned my goat because this lady and this man, Mr. Cuffey, and by this lady, I mean Fani Willis, literally reached out beyond Georgia. Not just the counties in Georgia. They got brazen with it, which is what tells me somebody else is pulling the strings because they have no fear. They did everything they did and do with impunity because they know nobody's going to stop them.
Program from Florida, from Wisconsin. And so, of course, I questioned it. I felt like, our youth in Fulton County have so much need. Why are we not focusing on the youth in our county, especially when the grant and the grant application or the application to the program specifically say that must be Fulton County residents, must attend Fulton County or Atlanta public schools. So when I brought that to him,
We're still talking about Mr. Cuffey.
Mr. Cuffey, excuse me, sorry. So when I brought that to Mr. Cuffey, the next day I was told that we needed to have a meeting, and he attempted to put me on some type of a plan, like a professional development plan. I've never been written up, never had any warnings. So I
was wondering if you have a history of being a troublemaker in the
I do
workplace.
I do not. And in the evidence that I gave you, I also included 24 letters of recommendation from everybody that I've worked for in the past 12 years, including everybody here in Atlanta that I've ever worked for, saying the exact opposite of what's been stated of me. However, he tried to put me on some plan, but the plan was like a personal attack on me. It talked about my appearance and it was just not professional. So I escalated my concerns to HR. Human resources, excuse me. So the HR personnel in the DA's office, her name is Kyra Banks. I reached out to her on July 7th of 2021. And we met on July 20th. And I basically told her all of my concerns and she said she took.
But nothing's going to happen. People, if you decide you want to be a whistleblower in a company, what I have learned is that it is not going to work in your favor. This lady's head was given to Fani Willis on a platter by the man who was now over her. And Human Resources only went back and talked to them and figured a way to help her out the door. Those of you who know me know that I've been a Human Resources director for quite some time. Went to school for it. I know how these things work. If the Human Resources manager or the individual that they're dealing with does not stand up for right and stand their ground, they will do and sway and bend whatever direction the leadership of the company or organization wants them to. So in other words, if you don't take your chunkles and your ethics with you in this type of position, and you're not the type of person to tell them, hey, look, wait now, this is illegal and I'm not doing it. I had to tell a company, you can do it, but I'm not using my ink pen to do it. I'm letting you know right now that what you are talking about goes against Title VII. What you are talking about is against the law. I said, and I will not use my pen to do it. You do it. If you want it done, then you do it. I can be held liable and can be sued personally for this trash. That lady, unfortunately, went to the wrong people. Let's finish and see how that part ended.
Took notes and told me that she would escalate my matter on July 23rd.
Escalate, in your view, means take it up a ladder to
Yes.
a higher somebody above Mr. Cuffey.
Absolutely.
Okay.
On July 23rd, there was additional retaliation, and it was just so much. I was extremely anxious, even coming to work, because I just didn't know from day to day what type of retaliation I would receive. On July 26th, I reached out to Dexter Bond, who is the chief of staff in the DA's office.
To Ms. Willis?
Yes.
Okay.
And I reached out to Dexter because we worked in the previous administration together. He knew my work ethic. And I just felt like I needed somebody in the office to understand and know what was going on. And
what was his role with Paul Howard?
Under Paul, I think he wasn't chief of staff. I think he was I can't remember his exact role, if I'm being honest, but he was a high up
position.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's an attorney as well.
He had worked in higher levels of administration for DA Paul Howard as well.
Yes, and I believe he worked with Paul Howard for like 7 years. So
Okay. So you reached out to him
yes.
directly. All right, tell us about it.
And I told him there were youth in the junior DA program from out of the area. I told him how he treated me. I told him about the PDP. I told him about the OJJDP funds, and I sent him a copy of the PDP. And I told him specifically in a text. Well, I spoke to him in person, and then I sent him a picture of this professional development plan. And I said to him specifically that at this point in time, like, he's putting you guys in a situation where I have multiple potential lawsuits because of how he's treating me. And I said, I need to speak with Ms. Willis because I don't believe she knows. That was, I believe, at 11 o'clock in the morning. And then about 5, he responded back to the PDP by saying, wow, period. This is a problem, period. Then text me saying you have a meeting with the DA at 3 p.m.
This is in July of 21 sometime.
Yes, this is July 26th of 2021. And so immediately, I felt like a weight was lifted. Finally, I'll get to let her know, because I felt like I was trying to, in part, protect her, protect the youth of Fulton County, and just protect the integrity of these grants. And so ultimately at 3 p.m., I went to Ms. Willis's office. Judging by Dexter was in this meeting, I could tell that she was already kind of briefed. And she said something to the effect of, now what's going on? So I went to speak and tell her, I said, I'm concerned about the way the grants, and I think I said something else, and she cut me right off in the middle of my sentence and said, effective immediately, you're going to be moved, and demoted me to the role of file clerk. So immediately,
you went from a department head to a file clerk.
Correct, a program head.
And that's the thanks she gets for being a whistleblower. Why? Because every single person that works for this woman is on her team. And that's the reason why she brought the transition team in the beginning, to get rid of everybody out of the old regime. She wanted to get all of them out of there. So that's why she brought Mr. DeSantis and Mr. Wade to interview everybody. They sent a message out to all of them to say, hey, your job's not guaranteed. we are going to release everybody and start fresh with new interviews. Those people who we ask to stay, you'll stay. Those who we ask to leave, you will no longer have a position. So anybody that is on this woman's team, I need you guys to hear me, because if there's anybody going through this type of stuff on your regular everyday job, trust and believe this is a tactic that is used time and time again, ad nauseum. This tactic is used. They will help you out the door. And that's exactly what happened to her. She was feeling like, hey, I need to rattle these cages and tell these people this is illegal, this is wrong. I can only imagine her having a specific amount of pride about having put these grants together, knowing the ins and outs, having sat with the builders and the people that are going to refurbish the building and all of this stuff. And I can only imagine her every single day going into work saying, I wonder what it's going to be today. So if you're going to hang out in that kind of position, you're going to have to keep your head down and do your work. But if you don't want to be there, you need to get another gig and go. Because let me tell you something. These particular type of positions that are dealing with government are different than the general sector, in that in the general sector, your name can be mud quickly. It can be mud quickly here, but this is publicized, right? So she has a new job. But in the general sector, if you work in a specific type of business, if you don't plan on leaving the state and going far away, they're going to run your name down. There's only a couple of alternatives you have. Now, they demoted this woman from being a department head or, running a division of something to a freaking file clerk. And this came from the woman she was trying to protect. Look here. What's that old song? Don't save her. She don't want to be saved. She don't think she needed to be saved. She didn't need to be protected. Why? Because she is doing the crap that she's doing on purpose. I wouldn't be shocked if she's getting extra money on the side. And by she, I mean Fani.
So I went from the director of juvenile diversion to a file clerk, which changed not only the function of my job, it changed my schedule, changed my location, it changed, this is frivolous, but I was taken off the website. I was essentially banished for what I saw to be protecting her at the time.
Did she say why you were being demoted?
No, not at that time. The meeting lasted maybe 2 to 5 minutes because she cut me off immediately and told me I was demoted. So I was kind of left flabbergasted. And I reached back to her that evening via email just to get some clarity. And that was the first time I ever heard that she was saying that she wasn't pleased with my work. And it's important to note, I don't want to get too far in the weeds. I feel like we're already there, but it's important to note that 3 weeks prior to this, she had just asked me to assist in another department. So 3 weeks before, she wasn't dissatisfied with my work. So it was shocking to me that suddenly she was dissatisfied with my work the day that I disclosed that I was concerned about the way these funds were being spent.
You have mentioned several times about retaliation. What type of conduct or actions were aimed towards you that you felt were retaliation? This demotion's pretty clear cut, but yeah. Were you being treated differently by Mr. Cuffey or Mr. Bond or any other supervisory type employees?
Yes. Treatment as far as, like I said, being disinvited to meetings, just the attitude of when I would ask for things or ask for additional guidance or feedback, it wouldn't happen. I also, in addition to, I sent him an email because he was essentially stifling my work. I was completing tasks that Ms. Willis had asked of me in previous meetings, and I would be asking him hey, did you get this to her? Hey, I've had this done. Did you look over it? I'm waiting for your feedback. And I was just essentially put on the back burner. Also, the PDP, the demotion was the first act from Ms. Willis directly. And then after that, because of the change in my work schedule and the change in my work location, I had asked for accommodations or a different setting because they were rehabbing the building, and it was causing me some health issues because I have existing condition. And I was told no, and told if I brought it up again, it would negatively impact my future evaluations, which would impact my employment. And about an hour later, my laptop was confiscated, so I couldn't work from home even if I wanted to. sometimes I would come to work and now as a file clerk, I would literally be putting thousands of documents into alphabetical order and then creating an Excel spreadsheet. And
What
things would.
department were you in as a file clerk? Were you changed to a different department or just removed as program head and kept in that same juvenile justice department?
No, I was moved to record restriction. And then ultimately I became the file clerk liaison between pre-indictment, pretrial indictment diversion for adults and the record restriction. So stuff I've never done or have any type of.
And so what that's going to set you up for, if you've never done that kind of work, is for unfair evaluations based on the work that you submit. So if for whatever reason this girl was not as intelligent as she is, and she did not know how to do a specific thing, there wouldn't have been any assistance for her. Therefore, she would have been qualified as not doing the type of work they needed her to do. She wouldn't have been fit for the job. This gets real nasty, but what I want to do now is I want to get over to her attorney. And you guys can check this out for yourselves a little later, but I just want to tell you, it's not pretty when you have this type of circumstance. I always caution people that if it's if you want to blow the whistle on something, then you really need to be cognizant of what it is that you're willing to lose to be that, because they've got a lot of people believing that
Mr. Williams, I'm gonna give you a second or two.
Being the whistleblower is a protected act. Well, yeah, it is a protected act, but it's also an act that was put in place to allow people to come forward so that they could be banished to the catacombs. You take a woman from this type of position and you put her in a totally different area where there's obviously refurbished work going on. If she has any breathing issues, if she's asthmatic, if she's got lupus, if she's got anything and she cannot breathe in that environment, and you tell an employee, hey, guess what? If you bring this to us again, it's going to negatively impact your job. That is against the law, but they don't care about that. And if you're not willing to take the risk of losing your employment, if you're not willing to take the risk of getting ill, then they're saying, shut up, be quiet. This case and this woman, I can't believe, well, yeah, I can believe it because Fulton County voted her in again. And by her, I mean Willis. They voted her back in and she's still going to be their DA. And if the higher ups don't take her out, I don't know what's going to be stated about that county. Now, here is her attorney. When we're coming back, they took a small recess and there's a lot of stuff that she led on to and said that was going on with her. But here's her attorney as they come back from break.
Talk and just kind of walk us through the litigation that's going on since you're Ms. Timpson's attorney in her whistleblower lawsuit. And then I may ask you a question or two, but I thought it would be good context for the committee to understand where this led. She has given her narrative, her story up until her firing, and the difficulty she had finding a job because of the disparaging remarks made about her by Ms. Willis, and of course the termination really for no cause or no delineated cause, let's just say. And so
wait a minute, and I'm gonna say this, and here's an issue. When you give a company that has let you go, again, you need to be cognizant of the fact that there are loose lips there that will sink ships. Are they supposed to say anything disparaging? No, according to the law, the way that it's written for human resources, or human capital, as they've taught us now is the new term. It's human capital. Wow. In human resources, it's human capital. So when you're dealing with human capital and you're calling to check a reference, the only thing that they are supposed to be able to establish is A, did this person work there? And B, what position did they hold when they left? Period. Legally, that's all they are supposed to do. But do I, as a human resources director and recruiter, know how to get more out of them? Yeah, I do. I do know the tactics to get more out of your former employer than you would ever want me to know. So this woman used disparaging remarks against this lady here. Fani Willis led other employers to believe that this woman was not a good worker. So it took her a while to get a new job. So that's the reason why at this point, she doesn't have a choice but to go public with everything and allow the chips to fall where they may. So this again is a life lesson for those who are listening. What is it worth to you? I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just asking, what's the cost?
Presuming that somewhere after that is when she approached you, or how did you get engaged or get to know Miss Timpson?
Yes, Chairman Mario Williams. I represent Amanda Timpson.
Pull that mic up a little closer.
I represent Amanda. Can you hear me better?
Sure, I can hear you better.
I represent Amanda Timpson, and after Miss Timpson was terminated, and she tried to resolve this herself with the district attorney and just trying to figure out what's going on, she approached me. I initially wasn't the filer of the initial whistleblower claim. I came in a little bit later because there were some issues, I guess, with the other attorney. She came back to me. I know the other attorney. I put in my notice of appearance. I started litigating. I have a little bit of experience litigating government actions against government officials, stuff like that, employment stuff. And so she alleged a whistleblower. That is the main substance of the claim. And we just been gathering evidence. Right now, a lot of you all are lawyers in here. We're in discovery. You know, discovery's been kind of stalled out because of some of the more broader things going on nationally and in here with DA Willis. So we haven't had a lot of depositions. We're supposed to have quite a few between June and July. So there hasn't been a lot of evidence as far as testimonial evidence. But Ms. Timpson, and the only reason why she's here today, and I asked her, I said, hey, look, it's up to you. I mean, I'm not a big person going in front of TV and all that kind of stuff, but, you know, if you want to go on there and you want to speak your piece and tell your story because you feel like you've been defamed or people are taking things out of context, you can do it. And so that's why she came here. You know, she came here because she wanted you all to understand the truth about her experience from her perspective. And I believe in her. I've seen her. She hasn't even, what she walks you all through is just a tenth of the evidence. For example, and I'll give you a good example.
Sure. With
the DCRC. Now, if you look at the DCRC's final findings, they don't even talk about, don't even address the nexus between what's been said in these documents about must be Atlanta Public Schools, must be Fulton County, and the fact that you have other people outside of Georgia, not just Fulton County, outside of Georgia attending this program, never discussed, never documented. Instead, what they say is off record, because that's the way it works, off record, hey, Amanda, you're right. We're a little concerned that you got perp walked out of a building within 20 to 30 minutes after you met with us, but it's never documented. And that's
you guys, one thing that we didn't notice, and I have to tell you this because it actually helps you understand this. Fani Willis's niece from another state, I think like New Hampshire or Philadelphia. She was in New Hampshire or she was in some very far away. She was actually a part of the summer program. It was her. It was several other people who were in government positions throughout the United States who flew their children, their nieces, their nephews into Fulton County. When you go and look at this video, parts that we've skipped through, this young lady here, Miss Timpson, is going to tell you about who she saw. She saw kids who were not a part of the program, who didn't even live in the state of Georgia, people who had parents who were affluential, people who had parents who were governors or mayors of cities throughout the United States that flew into Fulton County to take part in this program that she and others had put together for at-risk youth for gang prevention in Fulton County. Let's listen to her attorney finish up.
One of the big problems, you know, I hear back and forth. You try to look at both sides of oversight. But if you can report something with that kind of evidence and then it's never documented at all, then there's a failure at the county level that needs to be adjusted so these type of proceedings are getting to another level or another government regulatory agency can actually get justice. And that's what it's about, right? It's just about, hey, if I report something with this type of evidence, audio recordings, because what she was initially told was, hey, DA Willis said, you never reported any whistleblowing to her. And then I said, okay, well, send the audio recording. And then it's on the audio recording. Then it's like, okay, well, what's the next step after that? Because now you have the audio recording of the disclosure, not to get too technical. So what's the next step? And it just didn't happen. A complete failure at the Fulton County level. So in my opinion, with whistleblower activity, if something goes, especially about misappropriation of funds, if it goes into the DCRC, it needs to go to at least a couple other different regulatory agencies. You know, misappropriation of funds, as we know from the Howard administration, it could easily be investigated by the GBI. easily be investigated by the AG's office. But if it's going to be always that, hey, the proper channel is to do the DCRC, and they're just going to exonerate or don't fully investigate, and nobody's watching that, then that's a problem. And it's been a real problem for Ms. Timpson. I mean, she has a legitimate claim. I mean, it's more than legitimate in my opinion. And she struggled with it for 3 years. And not to throw Fulton County commissioners under the bus, but they've known about it for the 3 years because I personally sent it to them. Everybody's known about all this that's going on with Ms. Timpson for years. And nobody took one action about it. Must be Fulton County Atlantic Public Schools means just that. It doesn't mean like in a deposition, maybe you once attended Fulton schools, then moved down to Michigan or Wisconsin or Florida, and now you can get Fulton County money even though you're not living here. You know, so that's all I'll say. That the litigation hopefully can be wrapped up by Christmas as far as discovery, and maybe we can get a ruling. But our judge is also the same judge in the situation with former ex-president Trump, and so there's a lot going on.
Good. So Judge McAfee is the judge in the whistleblower lawsuit?
Yes, Chairman.
So you have filed a lawsuit on that matter?
Yes.
When was that filed?
I think 2.5 years ago.
And who are the defendants? Who's the suit brought against?
Well, at the end of the day, it's against Fulton County District Attorney's Office. We did try to bring it against. It's in state court, Superior Court, but there's some legal arguments that kind of made it untenable to hold it against Fani Willis herself. But in effect, it is because it's against the DA's office.
Right. She's the head of it, and she personally
did
the termination and
That's
the demotion, so to speak, previously.
That's right.
Okay.
And, I don't want to get, I don't want to preach or anything, but you have to have a lot of confidence in yourself to fire somebody within 20 minutes of talking to a compliance division.
Right.
You got to really believe in your heart, man, it doesn't matter. You can't do nothing to me if you're taking those type of actions, because a DA is a lawyer.
Right.
You already know the time is going to mean everything to a judge, and you just did it anyways.
Without any other type of excuse or
nothing,
pretext.
Didn't even try to write up anything. Knew that.
With impunity, because she knows she's covered. She did it with impunity because she knows she is literally untouchable. This woman has been promised either a vice presidency somewhere down the line. She's been promised a governorship somewhere down the line. This woman has been promised that if you do this for us, we're going to do this for you. There's some quid pro quo going on somewhere with Fani because she does not care. She gives no F's. If we was out just having wide, I'd be saying, you know what? She don't give no F's at all. She don't give none. She does not care. Nothing that goes on with this woman matters. She walks around with this air apparent like she is the queen. Okay. And then for them to call her madam, but she don't want nobody to talk about her fanny.
That she had a disciplinary file that was 0. Came up with emails and stuff after the fact, after the termination, which are easily disprovable, but we don't need to get into all that. But you just have to have a lot of hubris to say, hey, look, you meeting with the DCRC, you just met with one of my main input. I'm going to fire you right now. 7 officers to take Amanda Timpson out of the building. I mean, come on. I almost treated her like she was threatening to bomb the place.
Give me about a 3-minute explanation of whistleblower laws. What prevents that? What makes it illegal? What creates a cause of action if somebody is retaliated against? Well, bringing attention to a public corruption or misuse of funds.
It's been up to the Court of Appeals a couple of times, but it really comes down to this. If you report or you perceive that a public official engaged in misappropriation of funds and you disclose that, and that disclosure in response to that, you were retaliated in adverse employment action. What does that really mean? If here we don't have a problem because she was terminated, then you can bring a claim under Georgia's whistleblower statute, and I believe you have to do it within 1 year.
Right.
That's it.
And so there would have been a series of actions that were deemed retaliatory.
Absolutely.
The harassment on the job, the demotion, and ultimately the termination.
Yeah. So what I would bring your attention to, harassment happens a lot. We're in the 11th Circuit. So you start talking about hostile work environment, you got to bring a lot of information to prove that. But what Amanda has in her favor is when you send a text message, which I reviewed, and you say, hey, look, you all are not doing anything. I need to talk to Fani Willis. There is a lot of claims that I can, and you list the claims that you think she was wrong about some of them, but she's not a lawyer. But you list these legal claims that you think you have again, and you meet with a person, they say, okay, today, file clerk. I mean, the timing of that is just inescapable. Now, you can come back later and say, well, I did that to protect you. Really, you knocked me off my entire career path to protect me? You took me from a directorship to put me over here to stapling papers and numbering, like, not to diminish, all jobs are needed. But you knock me off of my career path and you say it's not retaliation, and you say things like, hey, I didn't take your money away from you, so we're good. No, we're not good. And then you have the situation within 45 days of having that recorded meeting, she gets terminated and gets terminated on the day that she meets with the DCRC, and all the harassment that comes in between. It's not just harassment, it's taking affirmative steps to try to derail your career.
Okay.
And they effectively did that. I mean, look, you all know about economic damage experts. My economic damage expert, and this is kudos to Ms. Timpson, said, hey, I've never seen anybody mitigate a job loss like this. I hate to even give you this low number, Mario, but I got to give it to you because she did such a good job of getting right back on the horse and riding and trying to get a job for herself.
The 1,000
That's
applications for jobs.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's where we're at.
All right. So this lawsuit was filed then back in 2022.
Yes.
And have depositions been taken? You mentioned discovery. That's request for production of documents and interrogatories and depositions. How much has been done?
I think we've had one or two depositions. We've sent out 30B6 notices, request for production of documents. We had ESI discovery, so that always takes a while, especially with some of the cyber attacks that have been going on. And we're looking at trying to wrap this up discovery-wise in probably August.
Has the DA's office been cooperative with discovery?
No. And I'm going to tell you why I say that. In Georgia, and I've done this many a times, you can actually do open records requests while you're in discovery. Now, it used to be you didn't even have to notify the opposing counsel. But then they changed it and said, look, you can't just be going around our back doing this. No.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and speed up a little bit so that we can continue here. I'm going to 153. And I want us to go ahead because we're going to get to the close of it. Here we go.
Behind it, it does say gang prevention program. It says grant.
Up there in the upper left-handed corner.
Mind you, this gigantic envelope or folder that she has here sitting between she and her attorney, that's her evidence. She actually made a copy of all of her evidence, and that binder belongs to the committee. She's giving that binder full of evidence, numbers, tabs, and everything. Talk about thorough. That is going to the committee. All right. So now she's breaking down the specifics of parts of this grant to the committee. So let me back it up just a smidge. Okay. Let's see if this helps us right here. Right here. Okay. Go back a little bit. Okay, there you go.
Well, it would have been me had I not been taken off of it. But in this regard, it was Mr. Cuffey to my knowledge. And the youth, they apply for it. And then ultimately, unless there's some huge red flag, we usually take them. Again, under Mr. Howard, it was 80 to 120 youth. So it wasn't too many that we turned around or turned away. However, again, according to my understanding, if you were out of state or out of county, that's automatic. You're not within the confines of the grant. So,
and that's reflected. I marked it as Exhibit 3, that participation application. It says you must be in Fulton County.
Yes.
And then on the second page, the website that describes the program says 6th to 9th graders from Atlanta and Fulton County public schools.
Correct.
And then again on that third page, it says the youth program accepts 6th to 9th graders from Atlanta and Fulton County public schools.
Yes.
So there is another exhibit that you gave me, number 4. It's the last page in our little thing, junior DA funding breakdown.
Yes. That's
you got
correct.
that?
Yes.
Tell me, what's the significance of this?
This was an invoice that was sent internally from the grants division. As you see, Michelle Henry sent this email out. And as you see, the second line says this is for junior DA programs funding breakdown, and this is for 2021. Line 2 says 27-inch iMac computer valued at $1,799. Line 3 said Zoom small teams. It was like for Zoom credentials valued at $2,120.25 for a total of $3,919.25 of the the junior DA program was spent on those items.
So it's your contention those items are not permitted under the grant?
Correct. Another just kind of concern that I had is that it shows $12,500 was spent on blazers and patches for 125 students. But in 2021, we only serviced 40 students. So I'm not quite sure why we spent that much on 125 blazers.
Got it. Okay, on Exhibit 2, says budget summary at the top of it.
Yes.
Where did that document come from?
So Exhibit 2 is not Junior DA. This was the OJJDP grant, the one with the project narrative as it correlates with Exhibit 1. And this is the budget summary for the OJJDP grant, which is the $488,000 grant. And I've highlighted line D where it says equipment. And then you can kind of follow it over and it says 0 equipment for all years of the grant.
So you didn't ask for money to be used for equipment?
No, there was no money for any equipment.
And when the budget was provided before they released the funds, it showed you would not be spending any money for equipment?
Correct.
Okay.
And if you see the page behind it, it does say gang prevention program. It says grant.
Up there in the upper left-handed corner?
Correct. It says, but if you see at the bottom, it says district attorney grant, and then unit, it says gang prevention program. So that was the OJJDP grant. And this says $1,245 to Dell Marketing, which would have been non-applicable for the grant.
That would have been a Dell computer?
Yes.
Some type of computer sold by Dell?
Correct. And that would not have been in the confines of the grant.
So that was your point for bringing this, to just give us an example of if one really specific. We know this proves that a computer was bought. It was spent from money from the grant prevention program.
Correct.
The gang prevention program from your grant.
Yes.
Okay. And this is what you brought to Cuffy's attention before he did this purchase. You said you can't do that.
Yes, that's correct.
And then you went and told Fani Willis the same thing.
Correct.
Okay. And that's when she told you what? Let me be very clear about this, or listen to what I say. What?
Yes.
Okay.
She said that I hear what you're saying, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. I want you to really listen to the words that I'm saying. So at no time did I told her in that audio recording that the grant is very specific. We cannot do that. And that was her reply.
Okay, I got off track, Mr. Williams. So you were telling me about difficulty obtaining the documents in the discovery process.
Yeah.
Did you also submit requests for production of documents to the DA's office in that litigation?
Yeah, we have that, and we're waiting on some documents. Now, opposing counsel in the case been fine. I mean, I go way back with Miss Hannah Rita, and she's good to work with. It was that open records request that just kind of, I said, hey, I can get this thing in 3 days, or you got to give me something, give me a good reason why I can't. And I just 30 days passed, 60 days passed. It's not worth me filing a lawsuit about it, but it was just obstructionist in my opinion.
Are you aware that there is a lawsuit against her by Ashley Merchant or her client on the open records request?
And I wasn't.
Okay. Are you aware of any lawsuits against the DA's office for refusal to comply with open records requests?
I'm not, but it wouldn't surprise me based on my experience.
As an attorney, do you believe that that office is exempt from Georgia's open records law as a constitutional office or any other reason?
Absolutely not. It's a government agency at the end of the day. Now, I'd love to see the legal argument about that, but it's a government agency. If it's headed by a constitutionally elected, that's like saying that we can't get the sheriff, anything for the sheriff's office because he's constitutionally elected. Okay. I mean, no, I don't believe that at all.
Okay. Anything else? So that lawsuit will be going through the process as you're completing depositions this summer.
That's right.
Will Miss Willis be deposed?
She is. I think her deposition is sometime next month, towards the end of next month. Okay. And so I think, I can't remember the exact date because it just came across like last week, but I know that opposing counsel absolutely wants to depose her. And just so you know how it goes, see how she stands up to examination, that good stuff, damages, stuff like that.
Because she's a relevant fact witness to the retaliation.
Yeah, very important. Whether or not DA Willis is deposed, that just depends on the law. Georgia has that kind of apex doctrine. So before you can go after a government official such as Fani, you kind of have to show that you can't get it from somewhere else and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to depend on who says, I don't know, I can't recall, or denies things prior to me going after a deposition with her.
Okay. All right. Anything further you want to add?
No.
Okay. Back to you then, Ms. Timpson. We're going to try to wrap this up because I know folks getting restless wanting to get out of here. You have heard some of Ms. Willis's public comments about the controversy with her and Mr. Wade, right? You mentioned early in your testimony that he was present in your interview in the fall of 2020.
Correct.
Do you know what his role was?
He was a member of the transition integrity team. That's what she called it. She ran on this Integrity Matters platform. And so
isn't that rich? Hey, all I can do is imagine Fani Willis dressed up like the queen on Alice in Wonderland. It is rich that she would actually have him as the head of the integrity team, the transition integrity team. all the T's anticipated and meant. She actually had a team that was dealing with integrity, of which she has none, of which he has none. These are two individuals who have very limited integrity, probably wouldn't know integrity if they were smacked in the forehead with it. They've no idea what integrity is. But yet and still, they had a team set up to interview everybody who was going to be fired to see if they could stand up to the integrity. Probably because of how meek this gal is, they thought that she was going to be a team player. Let's listen to the end of this.
They had her transition team was called the Special Integrity Transition Team, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
And to your knowledge, was he present in all the interviews for the open positions that people had to reapply for?
He was in all the interviews of every single person that I've spoken to that I knew in the DA's office. Yes.
Were you aware of any personal relationship between Mr. Wade and Miss Willis back at that time when everybody was interviewing in, sounds like, the fall of 2020?
No, I just knew he was somebody important because he was leading the interviews, but I didn't know any personal relationship or anything. I just knew he was clearly somebody that she knew and trusted.
And did you ever learn of any personal relationship?
I do believe at one point in 2021, there was just office talk of Ms. Willis having a boyfriend on staff. I didn't know who it was at the time, but just office talk, but nothing that I saw with my own eyes or anything like that.
Do you know what the DA's office policy was about basically having a relationship with co-employees or supervisors and their employees that had to report to them?
I just, from under Mr. Howard, I was under the impression that there was like a non-fraternization policy, but
and considering the fact that homegirl ran on no fraternization, no having sex with any of the workers that were under her, I really want to get to one particular part, because as we close here, this guy is going to come out tap dancing and shuffling. And I want you to hear how he tap dances and shuffles. And yes, it was me. I said it. I did. It was me. Let's see, can we find it here?
As far as this program is concerned, the one from the Department of Justice,
now listen to this,
the 488,000.
in alphabetical order. There were actually some documents from, I guess, under Mr. Howard that went back all the way to the 90s that I was tasked with putting into alphabetical order. So really busy work, essentially.
Did you get any gauge of what type of backlog there may have been?
From Fulton County
I'm trying
website,
to make
correct?
sure we get it to
Of either witness, now's the time.
Here we go.
I think that the whip had some questions, Senator Jones.
So the lady there, the woman there in the pink jacket always defers to the skee ball head dude on the left of the screen. The lady in the pink always defers to Mr. Skee Ball anytime they've had special committee hearing meetings, to my, knowledge, whenever I've watched it. And, I'm hard on us because I really want us to knock it off, man. Every time I turn around, I see us doing ignorant stuff. It does not matter what side a person is, whether they're Democrat or whether you know them because they're your frat brother or your soror in your sorority. Those things don't matter when you're in a position of, right is right and wrong is wrong. If the person is wrong, I wouldn't have nothing to say. I don't want to even question this woman. Let me look at that binder. Let me go through this evidence myself with an impartial eye before I make a comment. And that's the reason why the lady in the pink passed the baton to Skee Ball. And here is Skee Ball.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. The information that you provided with the where we have the open checkbook home, and has budget summary, and it talks about the Dell Marketing Group, Dell Marketing Corporation.
Correct.
That information was taken from Fulton County website, correct?
Correct.
And that has all the information as far as this program is concerned, the one from the Department of Justice, the $488,000 grant.
I wasn't able to find everything. Also, some of the documents that I did find actually are very much conflicting with the actual grant narrative that I helped author. So I'm not sure if they, what type of changes happened after I was terminated, but from what I authored or co-authored, they're not in alignment.
So you, and I understand this, I don't care about the fact that you did this, but you established a GoFundMe page, correct?
Correct.
And on that page, you actually have various links that persons can go to at the end of it, right? Mm-hmm. And one of those links, the headline of it is from the Free Beacon, And it says that basically emails say that you were a good employee. It was like Fani Willis says she's a bad employee, but emails tell a different story.
Okay.
And it cites an email that basically they were going to give you an award. You remember that? And so you GoFundMe page.
I mean, I copied and pasted them to ensure whoever was kind enough to contribute to that to legitimize it, because at the end of the day, I want people to know that they are giving to something that is serious and is honest and true. So yes.
Right. And so you read those articles. Articles that you linked, you read them.
Yes.
Okay. So the article that I just cited, within that article that you said you read, links us to the Fulton County website as far as this project is concerned, the $488,000 project.
Okay.
And so you actually are directing people to go to this website to read this article, which then has a link. So I understand you're saying, well, you don't necessarily know what's in there, but you, to some extent, are adopting this link because you're putting it in there. And that link from the Free Beacon goes to the Fulton County website. And my point is that in that website, whether you agree with everything that's there, all parts of that project are on that website. It talks about sub-report MOUs. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, and I believe there's been some issues with those MOUs and how they were actually spent. So while I respect what you're saying, I also linked several others. So not one is more special than the other, but
it's open there. It is there, correct?
Correct.
For anyone to read.
Absolutely.
To have some understanding of what the project is about. That's my only point.
What's your
You don't have
point?
disagreement with it, but it's there.
Yeah.
Okay. But right now, the sub-report MOUs, and what I'm trying to ask you is that, can you explain? I'm actually going to give you open-ended. Can you explain what these sub-report MOUs are?
Sure.
Yes.
The MOU is a memorandum of understanding between the sub-grant awardee, which would be an organization that is going to assist in doing the actual work of the grant, and the DA's office.
And there's various sub-grantees, I guess, or grantees that exist part of this. Do you know what those names are? I have them. Do you know them offhand?
Yes, I believe.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Chris 180 is one of them.
What is that?
Chris 180 is a mental health nonprofit that works with youth and families as a core provider. It's one of the largest core providers in the Atlanta area. I believe one is WAVE, which is We All Value Excellence, which is a police, I believe it's a group of former officers or current officers that work with youth in the community. One is the Atlanta Police Foundation under the At Promise Center. And I think there's one is the alumni, I forget what it is, Alumni Offenders Association, which is essentially like a Credible Messenger Foundation. And I think I'm missing one, but I can't remember.
That's fine. And within each one of those, they actually kind of lay out the responsibilities of those organizations, correct?
Correct. That's
And
what
I
MOU
also
does.
talk about how those organizations could be audited and things like that. And with each one, they have that. Correct? Okay. Is this all that you provided our committee? Was this from Fulton County dealing with the budget summary?
I provided your committee with this entire book, a replica. So that was just
It would
one
have
that I
all of this
pulled
in
from
there?
it. What was that?
It would have all of this information
It also
in
has
there?
an MOUs in there. Yes.
Okay. But today, this is all we're looking at.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And so what this shows is that there's really different players and
I
different
almost
moving
called
parts
this
as far as
man
these
a
grants are
name. He
concerned.
said interesting. You know what bothers me about him is because I actually watched him rake somebody else over the coals while he was attempting to defend Fani Willis. And these are the type of people that you see. He is the kind of guy that this young lady that's testifying went to say, hey, listen, this is going on. When she said she went to Mr. Bond, the guy who was in the office, and the next thing you know, she had a meeting with Fani Willis. That's the kind of guy, the guy that'll sit there and look like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, sure. Oh, wow, this is a lot. All right, okay, let me see what I can do. Let me see what I can do. And all he does is saunters in the office and says, hey, look, you got a problem. You know, your girl down there trying to blow the whistle on you. You know, she's over there talking about such and such and such and such. And look at this text message she just sent me. I suggest you have a conversation with her to see what's up. And then what's up was, I don't want to hear any more. 2 minutes into the meeting, you're now demoted. Not let me hear what you got to say. So then later what they had to do was go in there. She went in there with a recording and recorded Fani Willis talking to her, basically saying, hey, he tells me everything, but we're not friends. Yes, he does tell me some things, but you know, a lot of people try to pretend like we're friends and like they know me like that. Girl, please, you know you was in that dude's backyard at the last party he had. At the last cookout this dude had, you had your mom sitting right there. But the skee ball cat right here bothers me so because I've seen his kind. I have seen his kind. He's the kind you got to avoid at the water cooler, because any information you give him, he's going to twist it, turn it around, and you will be escorted out by 7 cats.
Is that not right?
It does. But one thing I do want to highlight for you is that when we created or when I co-wrote the grant, we had Fulton County Schools and Atlanta Public Schools as one of our sub-grant awardees. And to this day, Chief Applin has never received anything other than what he gave an MOU and expected money to be able to teach great to 4th and 5th graders, and has been waiting for 3 years to teach them gang reduction education and training, and has not received that money, never received anything saying he was no longer going to get that money, and the same with Fulton County Schools. So what I understood it at the time when I blew the whistle, at the time and prior to when I authored this grant, was that we were going to be giving money to Atlanta Public Schools and Fulton County Schools to make sure that we kind of satisfied the prevention part of the grant.
All right, and we're gonna end it there. And the reason why we're ending it there is because basically that's it in a nutshell. You guys can go on ahead and look at it at your leisure if you want to watch the whole thing. We sped it up a little bit. We speeded it up so that you didn't have to hear so much of it. But the point that I'm making today is Fani Willis's friend is making a big mess of everything. The loose strings that she did not sew up in the appropriate manner, they're all tearing stuff up for her. She is with impunity walking around like a bull in a china cabinet right now. She's causing all kind of mayhem for not only herself, but anybody else that wants to do anything in Fulton County in the future will be looked at with great scrutiny, I believe, because of how she's handled things. Now, I know that there's a lot of other folks that are on right now and they're live and we're losing a couple of folks. But for those of you who remain, if you don't mind sharing this out, and maybe we'll have to break it down, but I think it's important for everybody to find out exactly why this lady's testimony is imperative, because if not, especially those in specific communities, they're going to be walking around thinking that there was absolutely much ado about nothing as it relates to the firing of this young lady. And as you can see, as it's been laid out plainly before all of us today, there is a lot going on here. There is a lot of illegalities that are going on, behaviors that are not necessarily kind or good or thorough or equitable or fair or balanced. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. And I got some stuff that I want you guys to take a look at. I'm going to be coming back possibly tomorrow. I'm putting this piece together about the gal out in Chicago, and it's a totally different angle than anybody's ever done. I haven't seen anybody cover the angle that we're going to cover tomorrow. This is a serious situation for us to look at, because we always scream in the Black communities how no one is doing anything for us. These kids and these schools that this young lady just mentioned were allotted dollars. They put their name out there. See, there are the vendors that you have on these grants, and then there's this division that you have on these grants. And what you do is you get all the names of these organizations before you send it to the organization that's given the grant, and you let them know who are some of the players. Well, Atlanta Public School was one of the players. Fulton County Public Schools was one of the players. These people never got any of the money that they signed on to. They literally utilized their school the county school's name and said, okay, yeah, we're for it. We're going to go in ahead and we are going to do, gang diversion teaching here for 6th and 7th grade kids. With the funds that you guys want us to help us with, this is what we're willing to do. For us to have our name to be put with this grant, we're willing to teach this and that. They never got the money. Does anybody really get that? They never got the money because the money was squandered and misappropriated by the Queen of Hearts, Fani, by Alice in Wonderland Queen. Okay? So it means something in Black communities. It means something in Hispanic communities. It means something in underprivileged communities when people are constantly getting up screaming that the white man ain't doing nothing for them. And these people in the government ain't doing it. It's your own people. It's our own people stabbing us in the back, dude. And I don't care who gets offended at the fact that I'm bringing the topic up. It needs to be exposed and it needs to be talked about, because if it's not talked about and it's not exposed, it's going to continue. This is happening all over the United States with people in leadership, from California all the way to Louisiana, to Illinois, all the way to Atlanta, all the way all over the place to Texas. There are people who are in leadership who are showing their greater butts. They're all showing their butts with impunity because somebody has promised these folks something. Somebody has promised these folks something. It's the only reason why they're showing their rumps. Do what you want to do up in New York. A few years ago, you said you weren't going to even pursue a case, and now all of a sudden you've converted the case from a misdemeanor down to up to a felony for something that you said was a nothing burger only years ago when you were coming into office, Alvin Bragg. Now all of a sudden you say it is something. So this stuff has to be exposed. I'm going to do it, and I don't care who don't like it. I don't care. Thank you for keeping up with the rant, for all 22 of you folks collectively on both channels that are sitting here with us right now. I so appreciate you. Okay? I appreciate you. All right? And the reason why it's a lonely thing is because it's not a common thing. You don't see me here twerking, shaking my behind, doing a whole bunch of tap dancing and skitty-wee bopping. You don't see that. Because that's not the angle that I'm coming from. I want our people to get it. I want our communities to grow. I want our communities to clean themselves up. I want the people in the communities to know that when they vote for somebody, they can trust that they're going to do what's ethical and what's morally right. That's what I want. And I want that so desperately, because as time goes on and the days continue, it's only going to get worse. And if you have corruption at the head, it only trickles down. And the people who suffer the most are the people who need it the most. And so, yeah, I get a little ticked. I get a little perturbed when I see this kind of stuff happening. And sometimes, to be honest with you, and Sandy knows me personally, we spend time together and hang out at my grandson's, soccer games or whatnot, and we chit chat a lot. But sometimes it bothers me and it prevents me from even being able to come here and speak to you, because I get so frustrated with all of the illegal turns that this place has been taking recently. And it's not just our communities. It's just our communities that I feel I have a right to speak on. But it's from the top down. All of the stuff that's wrong that we know is not cool. All right. So with that said, I appreciate each and every one of y'all. And thank you very much for allowing me to be transparent and allowing me to talk about this stuff. Okay. And I'm glad that Constance Burns says, you know what? Been paying attention. Thank you, ma'am, for your insight and your input. It's truly appreciated. And I appreciate all of you guys. I really do. And thank you guys for allowing me to be me and allowing me to share with you honestly how I feel about these current situations. Because to me, these are the things that we need to be focused on, the stuff that we can have something to do with. Miss Tree, hey, precious. Okay? We have to, because if we don't, Miss Tree, who will? It's not cool. It's not cool what happened to that lady, but I guarantee you what we're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. Up under that is up under that underbelly is a lot of muck, is a lot of mire, is a lot of sedentary dirt, some sediment that's at the bottom of that barrel that's icky and nasty. Yuck. That's what you want to do in your mouth. You just want to spit it out. All right, you guys, I appreciate each and every one of you. Please remember that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Most High. I want you guys to take care of yourselves, but before you take care of other people, do that first. I want you to take care of yourself first, and then, as I always say, take care of everybody else. Until I see you all again, please remember to take care of my friend, because as you know, my friend is you. You guys take care and remember to be blessed. Hey everyone, it's me, Felicia, of the Lockhart Perspective and Headlines with a Voice. I want to tell you a little secret. This is what I used to do, because I don't do it anymore. I would go to the store, buy the barbecue sauce, pour it inside of a bowl, put a whole bunch of different spices, a dash of brown sugar, a dash of maple, and a dash of mustard, stir it all around, and everybody would be like, oh my gosh, this is the best, this is the best. But I was exhausted after all of that, and a lot of times I couldn't remember how many dashes of what I put in it. But I don't have to do that anymore, because now I just go to Judge Joe Brown's website and I order his 3-pack of bottled barbecue sauce. It is by far the best, and I do mean the best barbecue sauce I've ever eaten. And when you go to his website and you order his 3-pack, you'll see exactly what I mean. Head on over to jjbbbbq.com and order Judge Joe Brown's barbecue sauce. You'll be glad you did, and you're going to